and welcome to another episode of Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam. I'm your host, Dr. Cam, and today I'm talking with Deborah, Rosen, and Lindsey Thomas, the owners of the StudyPro, which is an executive function and study skills center in McLean, VA. At the StudyPro, Debbie and Lindsey work with students to help them better manage the process of school. This means helping students become better planners, time managers, initiators, organizers, and completers of work. Most students aren't taught these skills, yet they are so deeply needed to be successful at school and throughout their careers. Welcome, Debbie and Lindsey. I am so happy to have you guys here.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here.
Yes. I am sure there's lots of parents excited that you are here because everything I know, everything I just listed are things that we're all struggling with. Me too, as a parent of a teen, right? So start off by telling us, how did you guys get into doing the StudyPro?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that. And I'm also struggling through the end of school year. Go 30 more days or whatever it's going to take. So I'm parents of tweens and teens, so appreciate all of this conversation. It really started with the fact that my son struggled with all of the things that you just listed. And he is now 21, so there is a bright light at the end of all of these tunnels. He is in college and doing well after a lot of intervention and support with executive function. But, you know, he really struggled at school, and we found that what kids really needed was to wrap them with structure for their brain that wasn't quite developed yet in terms of the executive function. They had a hard time getting started. They had a hard time maybe keeping going, rushing through work. I mean, all of the same challenges that we all have as parents, missing work. And sometimes what we really needed was to teach them the skills explicitly, have them practice the skills, which we are sitting here in our homework center and what we do here. And also then sometimes have specific support with folks like Lindsey and the other coaches that we have. So that's why we created StudyPro, because there really wasn't anything like that. And I kept for, 15 years wishing that we had a center like this.
Thank goodness we do now. Thank you. So what type of things, let's talk about executive functioning for a second for parents that aren't exactly clear on what that is and why teens struggle with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll kind of jump in here. I as a special educator, I got really excited when I started to learn more about executive function and how the frontal lobe develops, because part of my job was always to try to find the right solution or the right remedy to help the behaviors that I was seeing from our students. And some of the behaviors that parents are seeing right now are the missing work, or they're not getting started, or just doing the bare minimum just to try to scrape by in those last 30 days. And those are the behaviors we can see, but really what's behind that is the missing skill of executive function, which is the last part of your brain to develop in that frontal lobe part of your brain. And it's developing into your mid-20s. So it's developing all through that time when they're in school through adolescence. So they're expected to use that part of their brain before it's fully developed. So what we do here at the StudyPro is help the kids also identify what is the skill that I need, and then what are some strategies to help make it easier. What can make it easier to get started? It's not just that they have to want to do work or want to do well in school. They really do. But what they do need is the tool to be able to make getting started a little bit easier.
That is so important. And I think a lot of parents, we try to motivate by like, just do it. It's not that big a deal. If you just started it, you'd be done. Like, you're wasting so much time. So what's going on with our kids? Because you just said, it's not that they don't want to do it so much, and they definitely don't want us nagging them. I mean, nobody wants that. So what is going on, and what can parents do to help?
Well, I'll actually start that, and then I'll turn it over to the other part of the dynamic duo. But I mean, I want to emphasize what you're saying. And one of the things that I've learned in this journey is that most of the things that we really say out of our own anxiety end up being wrong. And not because we're purposely trying to say something wrong, but because when we ask our kids, do you have homework? Have you gotten started? Have you studied for your test? The real challenge is they don't necessarily know how. And they want to do that, but they get like drug into this deep, dark playground of places that are their phones or YouTube or other things. And what we really want to do, as Lindsey said, and she'll extend, is to give them that strategy, so that when we're saying, okay, instead of saying, hey, do you want to, have you gotten started, really help them with getting started. So I'll turn it over to her for some of the strategies.
Please.
That's exactly it. And Dr. Cam, what you said about the just, that's such a magic word, because we say that often to try to motivate them to what we're trying to do by saying just is to relieve the anxiety. It's not that hard, just get started. But what we fail to recognize sometimes is that there's a lot of steps in between that just. In between that getting started, there's a lot of steps. So it's actually, okay, can I find the assignment? Do I know what the assignment directions mean? Do I know how to actually then start with number one? Can I actually go and create the document? And is my brain then telling me the whole time, this is going to take forever?
Yes.
Or is my brain telling me I have to make this perfect because I have to get an A, and if I don't get an A, then I'm not going to get in college, and then my parents are going to be disappointed in me, and on and on and on cycle that can happen from that. Yeah. So when we're saying just get started, all of those triggers in the brain is happening. So what we want to do is catch the thoughts. We say here a lot that if you can catch it, you can change it. So what we want to do is to have the kids help recognize in themselves, what is that thought that I'm having that's making it harder to get started? And then we can start with the strategy of saying, okay, I'm assuming that it's going to take forever. I'm not going to disagree with you. As somebody who's trying to help you, I'm not going to try to counter you and be like, no, Debbie, that's going to take only 10 minutes. You're wrong. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, okay, let's look at this together. Let's see if we can tackle this together, and let's look and see what we can figure out, how long it might take. Because then they feel like they have an ally next to them in solving the problem.
Let's look at a great place to start. What does this question mean, right? We always talk about on-ramps. What is an on-ramp? An on-ramp is a way to safely get onto the freeway without killing yourself or others. And that's what we want to help kids do with assignments as well. Oh, what does the sentence say? So a lot of times what I find is that when I'm looking even at my own daughter's work, I find that the questions or the directions can be confusing. And sometimes kids really don't understand. Just get started. They look at the directions. They're like, or, they have to scroll back and forth and remember and use their working memory to remember the directions when they're at question 3 or question 4. So how about externalizing those directions and putting them on a whiteboard next to them, or, on another piece of paper, or on Google Keep, so that you can constantly have those directions there when you're working through the document. So what's a way that we can, as parents, help kids with the process piece of their work, which means getting started with some strategies, even using things called time timers, which here is a small one. We use them in our center, but basically they also help to.
Yes. I got this from the last time I talked to you guys.
And that's perfect. And those are both great suggestions. So, it helps the brain, as Lindsey was saying, think, oh, I'm not working forever. I'm working for 10 minutes. And I'll just say one other thing, which is we also really believe in breaks. One of the things that when we interview kids and ask them what helps so much, what are some of the strategies that have really worked for them here? Oh, I get to take breaks. So every 25 or 30 minutes, depending on the kid's age, but certainly with tweens and teens, they should be just taking a brain break, not looking, on videos or getting on their phone, but getting up, getting some water, stretching, because kids sometimes they fight that because they don't feel confident in their ability to get started again.
Yes.
But we can give them strategies to do that, which is, where are we going to start again when we get back up? Write that half a sentence, highlight that, put something on it so we know how we're going to get started again to make it a little bit easier.
Oh, I like that. So you're already kind of jump started what the next step is going to be, so they don't have to worry about, oh God, I got to get this started again. So for parents, when we're struggling to get our kids started or to stay going, and we don't have necessarily the time to sit next to them the whole time and say, okay, or we want them to learn how to do it on their own, right? We don't want to be ending up doing it for them. I've even talked to parents who are like, I just did it for them because I can't deal anymore. And it's like, okay, I get why, but we want to help them do it. So what are the best things we can do to kind of help them, but not do it for them or not have to hover?
That's a great question, because the temptation and what Debbie was referring to earlier is sometimes that our way of helping can come from a place of fear or anxiety of jumping in. And at the end of the day, and what I often say to kids is, no matter what, your parents love you, and that's where it's coming from. They don't want to see you have any pain or hurt in your life, and that fear of having you have any pain or hurt from a failed grade or a disappointing grade can lead us to want to jump in and do for or do more. But there's also the reality that we don't have the time to sit right next to them and be there every waking minute. And part of our jobs is to help them build the independence to be functional adults in the world, living alone. But so what we want to do is we can provide supports around the process of homework and not the content. So as Debbie was saying, here's some timers. A way a parent can help, then also can help open the door with the kid to say, here's some ideas. Someone was telling me today about some really cool timers. Let's pick out one that you like. Like this one's the time timer, it's red. There's also a teal one. There's the cube timer. There's the Alexa smart clock that you can put on the wall let them have some choice in it. So then we're helping them with the structure, but we're not telling them and we're not doing it for them. Mm-hmm. The same way with what Debbie was saying about getting started, it can be like, okay, let's look at it. Let's dissect this prompt. Let me grab you a whiteboard. And just putting it next to them, or, let me go grab you a stack of Post-its. It's saying that I'm helping, but I'm not doing, and I'm not assuming that you can't do it on your own. That's where the wall comes up with a lot of students, is because, oh, mom, you're helping, or, oh, dad, you're helping because you're assuming that I can't. Yes. And that's not the message we're even trying or intending for them to receive, but that is how they're receiving it.
And validating that it is hard. We sit here every day when kids come in, and the first thing we do is plan. And planning is in itself an initiation strategy. And when we plan with them, we go through every single one of their assignments in their subjects, and then help them with kind of on-ramp strategies so that they feel that they know how to get started. They also estimate about how long it will take. And I think what we found is a few things. Sometimes kids struggle with getting started is really that they haven't looked or previewed the assignment. It feels bigger in their head, going back to what Lindsey was saying. And just understanding and validating that, you know what, we may not think it's hard, but we're grown adults with prefrontal cortexes that are fully mature. But they do think it's hard. It's like, yeah, sometimes it's hard. It's after school, we're tired, we've had a long day. And there is a lot of work. We see that kids come in with a lot of work that sometimes I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. But the idea is that we really need strategies to help break it down, to feel that we have a way to get started, to take breaks in between, and just sit there and go, I know this is really hard, but we're going to just get through it together. Not necessarily we're doing the work, but maybe I'm sitting here and doing my work while you're doing yours. But relieving them of that big monster that's feeling, like it's out there, by helping them break it down a little bit, by helping them plan so that they know what's in front of them.
I think one of the things I'm hearing too is this is all about teaching them skills and process and being able to figure it out on their own. And I'm not hearing any of, we need to get them to do straight A's. We need to get them to make sure that they're like getting everything completely done. Like, this is about teaching them skills. And I hear from parents and I hear from teens. Teens are coming to me saying, all my mom or dad cares about is my grades. They ride me all the time. They're stressing me out. I can't even think anymore because every time I sit down to try to do something, they're popping their head in, asking me what I'm doing, and it's stressing me out and I can't even get started. Or they don't understand what the process is. They just keep looking at what the outcome is. They're not saying specifically that word. I'm kind of phrasing that. And then the parents are coming to me. I can't get my teen motivated. They won't do their work. I'm constantly having to ride them just to keep them going. What's happening here? And what can we do instead?
Well, I love what you were saying about that. You're hearing two different sides of the coin, right? We're hearing it from students, and we even hear it ourselves from parents too, that say, we don't care about the grades. But how else do we measure metrics? How do we measure growth or progress? It's hard to sometimes see those progress in the process part of school. Yeah. And so that's what we want to focus on here too, is just watering those seeds of the process that we're seeing. And then what I love is that it's kind of like the field of dreams. Like if you build it, they will come. If you focus on the process, the grades will come. Mm-hmm. And I know that's easy for someone like me to say, who's not right now that parent of that child in that moment. But if we focus on the process and take a step away and water those seeds of, oh, hey, you got started. That must feel so great to get started on something, even if it was last minute. Mm-hmm. Where we can unintentionally demotivate and actually be watering the weeds, what we don't want to grow, is when we say, see, I told you it wasn't going to be so hard. Mm-hmm. See, you should have started early. Or the famous, next time we're not going to, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're saying that to themselves too. Yeah. They want to feel proud that, like, yes, it was hard to get over that. The validation that Debbie was talking about is really important, to say it is hard sometimes to get started. And you got started last minute. That's the seed we want to water, is that you got started.
Mm. And I'll say one other thing as a parent too, is that Dr. Cam, I can't tell you how important it is. And I hope that if you're out here listening as a parent, it is the tortoise and the hare. We can try to rush our kids to competency by forcing them to study harder and study longer when they don't really have the tools. But when they get into high school, or if they get into college, they're not going to have those tools of how to take the right kinds of notes and annotate and break things down and really feel that they are confident. Because if you have that infrastructure of being able to initiate with strategies, being able to, as I said, take notes and do all of these things that help you, that's an infrastructure that's going to build, and you're going to carry with you everywhere you, and you're going to have it in high school and college. And I'll tell you something, I went through that with my daughter, and she feels so much more confident now going into high school because she knows she has incredible study skills. And no matter what that paper is coming at her, no matter what happens, even though she might sometimes struggle with the content, she knows how to make a plan and chunk things down and work it over time. And then, with any project, we can get it done if we do it that way.
What I'm hearing from you is what's more important to learn are the skills, not the actual content. The content they're going to forget. I know I've forgotten pretty much everything, right? The content they forget, the skills they'll continue to have, and then whatever they need to learn in the future, even if it's something I suppose they already learned, they know how to go learn it.
Right. Well, everyone wants their parent, I'm not sure to interrupt, but everyone wants their kids to have resilience. That means that, one of the things that means is that I know I can handle things with the skills that I have, just the way I am, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that if you have that pack of tools with you. You can do that. You take that and you build that confidence. You can do it. And we say strategies and effort. IQ is a gift, but if you can't get to that content because it's hard to get started, or you waited to the last minute, then that IQ you have really doesn't help you. You need those skills just to get to the content, and then the IQ can, be of value because you can write that great paper, because you can do well on that test. Right. But if you don't have those skills, then it's going to be hard to do that.
And IQ, really, what is that measuring? If you're not able to use it, what good is it? And if you're not necessarily born brilliant, but you have all these skills and can learn things, you can have any information you want and be able to learn anything, right? So I think that's so powerful. And I really love the whole, Lindsey, you were saying the water the seeds. Can you go back into the seeds and the weeds a little bit and just explain that a little bit more, what that is and how do we focus on that?
Of course. And we can both talk about it because it is such a topic that we are both very passionate about. But think of that growing garden. And sometimes we can see the weeds surrounding those plants, but those are what we don't want to grow. What we give our attention to, what we give our time to, is what we want to grow to. So even if there's the weeds surrounding our garden and there's missing work and there's not studying for tests or failed tests right now, those are those weeds there. But we want to grow some of those skills that we were referring to. We want to say we're growing the skill of self-advocacy, praising for them to go talk to their teacher what's really hard about a missing assignment or a failed test. We want to praise them for getting started or using a strategy such as a timer or taking a break. Mm-hmm. Hey, they're changing up their habits, and it's hard to change habits. So we want to water and praise and focus our attention on those seeds that we want to continue to water and grow so they can blossom into that resilience that we were talking about and that results that we were talking about. that are the reality, but we want to make sure as parents that we're focusing on those little nuggets, even no matter how tiny they may be.
And those nuggets are what they're doing. They're the effort. Because I hear, parents going, and again, I'm saying this because I know they're doing it from the right place and they're trying to encouraging it, but it's like, you're so smart. Of course you can figure this out. And that's like the surest way to ensure they're paralyzed and they're not going to want to do anything, because now there's no room for failure. Right. And now there's nothing they can do that controls being smart. What did they do? But what you're saying is we're watering the seeds of what they're doing, the effort they're making, the things that they're like progressing in. Those are the things they have control over. And those are the things that will encourage them to continue doing it. Because now you're like, see this little bit of progress? Yay.
And we're watering the seeds, as Lindsey said, of the skills that we want to grow. That's going to build that resilience in that base. And Dr. Cam, I'd like to share one practical, real life story about watering the seeds. So my daughter actually came to me with very, very upset because her science teacher had given some constructive criticism on her study guide. Now, my daughter, who really is an excellent in strategy and effort, she can rush through things. And she wanted me to validate that I understood how upset she was about this. And my first reaction inside my head was, oh my God, I know she rushed. I know that isn't good enough. Oh my gosh, she's not going to do well on the test. But I didn't react that way. I caught myself and I texted her and said, that must have been really difficult to say, get that criticism, hear that. And we kind of went back and forth, and I just kept pushing myself to validate, what can we do about it? What do you think your options are? So she went to one of her other teachers that she trusts and asked her what to do. And her teacher, and this advisor actually suggested that she write. So she advocated for herself and said, look, my study guide may not make sense to you, but it's the way I learn, and really was helpful for me to be able to have these. And the woman wrote, you know what? I really think that makes sense. I understand I'm a visual learner, and so I do understand that. But I do think that in these areas, there might have been some rushing. And so my daughter actually went back and redid the study guide. And at the end of the night, literally at the end of the night, I said to her, you think it's probably fair to say that there was a little bit right on each side, that you were excellent because you self-advocated and you shared with her how you learn best. And now she knows that. But maybe she was right that there were some areas that you rushed a little bit, and that you feel that you now maybe know this a little bit better. And she says, yeah, pretty much. And to me, that's the perfect story. And this literally happened yesterday.
Oh, wow.
The perfect story and of like how we water seeds. Because what I want is that child. I want that child. I don't want the child that feels that when she brings me the problem, I'm on top of her going, oh, you should be doing more on that, because then is she going to bring me the problem again? No.
Yeah.
Or that you would jump in and solve the problem for her. That's another area that we unintentionally demotivate our kids all the time, is that we think we're helping, but then it's sending that message to her that she couldn't solve it, or she didn't have the skills, or that we were assuming that we needed to take the reins and do that. We didn't. Right. Debbie didn't as a parent. We didn't need it as
I really wanted to.
And I'm so happy you shared that too, because you do this every day and you still are having those instinctual jumps. So we're not saying you're not going to think this. I mean, we all do. The difference is we become very mindful that we're thinking this, and we start learning to stop ourselves, or we say it and then we can go back and be like, okay, that wasn't helpful. Let me go back and do another way. Right. And so we're learning too our own skills of being able to help them more effectively.
Yeah. It's that whole idea of being anxious, and I can be anxious for her, and I can recognize that and be supportive. I think that's what we're always trying with kids that are anxious. I can be anxious and brave at the same time. Yeah. It doesn't mean the fear is going to go away. My fear of her not doing well on the test is still there. But I do feel that it's a happier ending than where it might have been if I had jumped in and defended her teacher and made her feel not great about herself.
Yeah. And I love the, referencing our own fear, because I think that's when if we're starting to panic about our kids' schoolwork, that's something that we need to stop and reflect. Why are we panicking? What are we afraid of? You know, and let's really get real about what does that really mean? And are we like catastrophizing this whole situation, which is then putting all this pressure and making them feel like, you know, weighted down when it's not even necessary. So I think there's a big piece of that. Okay, so there's so much great information here. How do people find you and work with you guys?
Well, we are at www.thestudypro.com or info@thestudypro.com. We also have a Facebook page, which I'm sure you'll share. I think StudyPro McLean. You can see our great sign here.
Yeah.
And we also have, you know, a great information on our website. So I think you were going to share. We have a quick guide to executive function and study skills, which explains a lot of this. And we have with that on the link that we provided to Dr. Cam, we have that a webinar of us talking about each specific executive function, because sometimes parents really want to know what are executive functions, how they can be a cheerleader for their students, watering the seeds, as we talked about, for developing each specific executive function. And it's not as important that you remember exactly what each executive function is, but just remembering that when your students are having challenges, there's always a missing skill behind that. And let's try to help provide strategies to shore that skill up so that we're helping them and be solutions oriented, as Lindsey and I always talk about, rather than, you know, as some of the things we covered today. So we hope to hear from you guys. We have courses this summer, study skills, as well as writing courses, because writing is, of course, very executive function heavy and process oriented. And we also do one-to-one coaching, of course, all year round.
This is great. And it's about why are they not motivated? Why are they having trouble? So when we just try to make them do it, we're not addressing that why. And you guys address the why. You figure it out and you give them the tools. That is so incredibly helpful. That was just parting words right there, but any words of encouragement for parents with teens, because we all know we need as much encouragement as possible.
My encouragement would just be to validate that this is hard, that we're all doing the best we can. It is biologically natural for them to be pulling away and to resisting the support that you're trying to give them right now. That doesn't mean they're going to always hate you. They will be your best friend again in their 20s. It will be okay, but I understand that right now it is hard, and reach out when you need that help.
And we're the adults, so we need to, you know, constantly rethink and monitor our emotions, because there's no piece of homework that is worth any type of friction between you and your child, or hurting the relationship between you and your child. And I have lived it. So I promise you, especially with my older one, who is in a great position right now, you know, as I kind of said from the beginning, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And all of you who are going through challenging times right now, I think if we stick to the strategies, effort, watering the seeds, and monitoring ourselves to make sure that they understand that we're here as their allies.
Yep. And it's an alarm. I love it. It works.
There.
We'll be there. There'll be success.
Yeah. And, you know, I just want to reiterate one little thing you said too, that I think kind of sums this all up. There's no piece of homework that is worth sacrificing your relationship with your teen. That is exclamation point right there, right? Love that. Thank you guys so much, Deb and Lindsey, for joining me today. I'm so grateful.
Well, thank you for having us. We really had fun.
And thank you, parents, for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us. If you want to learn even more about how to connect with your teen and calm the drama, be sure to join me on Tuesday evenings for the Parenting Teens Power Hour. And also, if you enjoyed the episode and all the amazing nuggets that Deb and Lindsey shared with us today, please take a quick moment to rate and review. This helps other parents like you find the show. Feel free to share it with a friend as well, and have a calm, positive, peaceful day.